if it were to go the way that it did in our mock yesterday, where Campbell's off the board, I believe, at 4, Armand Membo went right after him, and then Kelvin Banks to the Jets, if they're there at 10, do they try to trade back? Do they like taking Tyler Warren there? I think that's a good option for them. Is that this is the best scenario, it worked out in our favor perfectly? I would say no. If there's a left tackle there, if it goes the way that they want, but realistically Jeanty's not there, I think you take your left tackle.
What do you make of some of the stories that are, that are popping up now about maybe the Bears are sincerely interested in moving up, maybe all the way to 3? Not buying that? Not hearing that?
The only, in what Adam Schefter had reported when Cap and I were doing the show on Monday, and Schefter put out his final thoughts of what he's heard around the league, and that the Bears are praying that Ashton Jeanty, or at least I think it was phrased specifically, teams believe the Bears are praying that Ashton Jeanty will, be their draft pick. To me, those words, if you're praying for something, means that you're hoping it happens to you, that it's bestowed upon you, not that you're going to be super aggressive and go move up to go get him. I don't buy the idea that they're going to be really, really aggressive to move up, to give up that much draft capital to get into the top 3, if that's what...
What if they're looking at Carter and that's the only way you could get him instead of Jeanty?
Is it worth it? I don't think it's worth it. I don't. If it was for a quarterback, that's the only thing that that's the only position that you trade up that high for. I don't know if
he's a stud, it's worth it.
If we're looking at the next great pass rusher, of course. But where they're at right now, they have too many other needs, I think, to be thinking we're a pass rusher away right now from making this roster into a Super Bowl team. That's not a. Can they get to a wild card game first? Seriously,
can we just get to a winning record?
Yeah,
how about 9-8?
No, and that's. There's still a lot of needs that this roster has, but they're in a good spot right now where they can walk away on Sunday and feel really good about the way that they address it if they use their 8 picks. I mean, I'm not expecting them to stay with 8 picks. Can they package some on day 3 and move up? That's what they've done the last couple of years, especially on that 3rd day. But for premium draft capital, I don't think you move up for Abdul Carter.
Can I convince you, if we have the discussion, that trading this year will be less costly than last year, when last year's draft was filled with 4 or 5 quarterbacks that teams were desiring? This year, you hear more about teams wanting to move back than move up. So maybe the price of moving up isn't nearly as costly as it was last year.
So when I asked Ryan Poles just about where they sit at 10, and there's this idea out there that if you're in the back end of the top 10, based on how the quarterbacks might go, might not go, it's kind of difficult to think you could move back. He said, potentially, but that the phones had been ringing. And I just think that's the most overrated thing that's being said at this time of year. Everyone's phones are ringing. Everyone's gauging the temperature of other teams. I get what you're saying about the draft capital. Maybe it's not going to cost as much. But where are they moving up to? If you're moving up into the top 3, you're giving up a future first. In no logical world are you going to move from 10 to 3 and be giving up you're 39, something else, maybe 39, 41.
We were doing the points, though. I think that's what it added up to,
basically,
right?
what would have been equitable was swapping
39.
3 for 10 and then giving 39.
Then where are you getting your running back? Where are you getting 41? Your offensive lineman of the future? I'm not in that camp. I'm sure there are some people there. I think they have some much more significant needs that if you want to, let's bring up Jeanty, though, because if you want to talk about a move to get in front of a team, if the draft truly starts at Jacksonville at 5, are you going to have to trade with the Patriots at 4? Is that price not a little too steep?
For Jeanty?
I'm
not going up at all.
The only guy I would consider moving up for is
an edge rusher,
Carter.
A premium position.
Yeah, who is considered by many to be the best player in the draft.
Also coming off injury.
True.
But
what if it's for, I asked him, he said no to this. What if it's for Will Campbell?
I don't know.
Then you get your left tackle.
You get your left tackle, but you could also get somebody I don't like the way the board fell in the mock draft that we did yesterday. I actually hated it, and I think a lot of Bears fans hated it too.
You took Tyler Warren,
right? I did, which is fine.
Right,
he's a great pick. But I honestly everything got screwed up with Jacksonville. And I am sure after every simulation, I can't stand when front office people are like, we don't know which way this is going to go. You've done umpteen million simulations. You have some idea of how this is going to go.
Do they
on
really,
Thursday
Courtney?
night.
Most of them don't win more games than they lose. I can buy the fact that
That's why they're
don't
drafting early.
That's why the Jacksonville Jags may be drafting a running back in the first round for the third time in 8 years.
But they have an idea, is what I'm saying. So, like, if it were to go the way that it did in our mock yesterday, where Campbell's off the board, I believe, at 4. Armand Membo went right after him, and then Kelvin Banks to the Jets. If they're there at 10, do they try to trade back? Do they like taking Tyler Warren there? I think that's a good option for them. Is that this is the best scenario? It worked out in our favor perfectly? I would say no. But, if there's a left tackle there, like if it goes the way that they want, but like realistically Jeanty's not there, I think you take your left tackle.
I'm with you.
That's been my view of this draft, of their needs and how you handle a top 10 pick. You don't want to be in the top 10. Like this, for their sake, they're hoping that this is the last time they're drafting in the top 10 for a while, because they've done it a lot.
We
in
said
the last
that last
couple
year
years.
too.
Which means you would maybe be more willing to give up next year's one if you think it's going to be 23rd. I'm just seeing,
potentially.
I'm just trying to add a little spice to something that has worn everybody down
Yeah,
at this
it really
point,
has.
and it's time to go. What did you make of yesterday? I thought the most compelling thing that came out of Hallis Hall yesterday, and maybe I'm making more of it than I should, was the thought that, or the statement that Ryan Poles said, it's an option to move Darnell Wright from right tackle to left tackle. Like, I didn't even think of that as a possibility.
I asked Darnell Wright about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he, I was just like him saying, like, oh, I don't really like doing the media stuff. He was quick-witted. He was on his toes. He's like, no, like, I think they're actually talking about moving me to quarterback. So he, zinged it right back at me. I was like, good for you. Yeah. You're learning. I think Ryan Poles is, that's because all 31 other teams are listening to these press conferences, what they're saying, how they view players currently on the roster. I think that's him not tipping his hand. I don't think that Darnell Wright will move to left tackle. I think that you go get another left tackle if that's what you want to do, because if you kind of like put their logic in like their words and use those words, present them back to the Bears. Think about how much moving around they did with Tevin Jenkins. Think about all the moving they did with Lucas Patrick when he was here. And even Ryan Poles. I know it was a limited sample size, but him, Ben Johnson, everybody said, oh, well, Jonah Jackson had an aberration of a year last year because he was playing out of position. Mm-hmm. I think
that's why I thought it was odd, Courtney, that he even mentioned it.
Here's what he said for those who weren't aware.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation. We'll see how everything goes. He clearly has the ability to play left and right. We saw that in college. That was part of the value in taking Darnell. So if he had to play left, I think he'd play left. And obviously, I think we're all excited about his stuff to go right.
He played left tackle a little bit at Tennessee, but most of his play was at right tackle.
I don't think it went well at left tackle for him.
Ryan Poles is a former offensive lineman. He gets that. I think more than anybody, he should understand what it's like to move guys out of position and asking them. And I also don't buy the idea now. In 2025, we have seen multiple examples of right tackles getting paid. Left tackle is still maybe the most critical position on the offensive line, but it's not this be-all, end-all. Once you become a really good right tackle, then you move over to the left side. I don't buy that. I don't think that. Look at Brian O'Neill in Minnesota. He became the highest paid right tackle in the NFL.
Penei Sewell's the same.
Same thing. Like, that is such a critical position because a lot of good edge rushers are coming off the left side now. And that's coming at your right tackle.
The only thing we were using in our calculus, too, was, is Darnell Wright that? And if Darnell Wright is good at right tackle, and then they look at, and they can maybe get Membu. Let's say they could get Membu.
And he'd play right.
And they deem him as a great right tackle. So they would say to themselves, we're upgrading there at right tackle. And then by moving Wright, who we still like and is good, we think he could still be good at left tackle, which is better than Jones and better than Karan Amagaji.
You're still moving people, though.
Yeah, you are.
Isn't that what they were trying to avoid? After all, Joe Tooney talked about this when he was the introductory press conference we had with him about how much stability they had on the interior of that offensive line with guys who played the same spot for multiple years in a row and why that unit was able to be so good. I think that's a message that the Bears need to heed if they don't already understand it clearly, that you just don't move people out of position because you think, oh, this is an upgrade at one spot. Let's swing somebody over there. They all cross-train, so obviously you have to. It's a position that has a 100% injury rate. Somebody's going to get hurt. You're going to be moving around out of necessity. But if you don't have to do it, why would you do it? That's why I've never been high. Like, Armand Membo is a fantastic player. He's a right tackle, guys. Like, I wouldn't draft him to play left tackle or anything else.
No, I wouldn't either. And it's the guys who've played the position. Tom Thayer says the same thing. Yurko says the same thing. Totally go with that. I just found it odd. I just did, because if you're not intending on even considering it, why even say it?
He could close the door. He could say,
no. We were very
Darnell Wright's our right tackle. We love him there. Why would we move him away from that?
Just thought it was an odd of takeaway.
I think it's him like trying to say nothing while being asked a very direct question. Like, he said...
Maybe, Courtney, maybe Dan Rochar looks at him and says... Maybe we should try him at left tackle. This is why I'm kind of
It's the first time any of those coaches will have gotten around any of these players, because when I asked Darnell that question, that was day 2 of the offseason program. So he probably didn't even know Dan Rochar's name already at that point. There will be combinations that we see, like we do every single OTA period, that are like, is this really what they're looking at right now? In years past, it's been contingency plans. I remember, a couple or 2 years ago when Matt Pryor was moving around a bunch because it was the contingency for Nate Davis. Right. If he was they had to plan, okay, is this guy going to show up or not? That was why they were working guys out at different spots. I think there will be some of that, just because naturally this is the time of year where you get to test those things. As it pertains to the draft, though, if there's a left tackle of the future who, I would put Braxton Jones up against any of, when healthy, which Ian Cunningham made a statement, kind of a declaration yesterday. He's going to be healthy. He's going to come back. All right. When healthy, he's your left tackle, and he's probably better than any of the left tackles that are currently coming out of the draft. And
really? I hope not.
But I believe the reason I say that is because he's got 3 years of experience. It's not a position that you ever want to throw a rookie into the fire with when they have not been in a weight training program, when they have a quarterback who holds onto the ball too long. And there's so many other factors that come into play for a left tackle. Like, Braxton went through that already. That's out of the way. He's experienced enough to where, however many starts over 3 seasons, I think he'd be better than anybody else that you could start at that position right now. Unless we see Karan is a good option.
Didn't you say, though, you want them to take a left tackle?
I do. For the future. Have Braxton start right now, and then you don't have to rush this player into a position.
Somebody's going to get hurt, as you said.
And it requires much more time and much more seasoning than I think we give it credit for.
Finish this for me on the poll question.
Okay.
If the Bears trade up to number 3, and both of you guys weigh in on this, if the Bears trade up to number 3, how would you feel? And I gave 4 options. I love it. I hate it. Depends who they draft. Depends what they give up.
I think the natural just depends what they give up is my default on that.
Mine would be depends on who it is, because if you're talking about Ashton Jeanty, as great a player as he may be, I'm not moving up for a running back at all.
Yeah, I think it's a combo of those last 2.
I'll consider Carter. You got to tell me what the price is. But I would not move up. Again, I don't know. I think Shea said it. I don't know the last time in the modern era where a team moved up. Who was the kid? Trent Richardson, I think, is what it was the last guy that was a running back that a team moved up for. I think it was the Colts, right, that did it. People forget, even Jahmyr Gibbs, the Lions moved back for him. They didn't move up for him.
He moved to 12.
Yeah. So, I'm just not I'm not into giving up draft currency for a running back.
I also think you need to factor in who, if they go to 3, that's the Giants.
Yeah.
I've been saying this all along. Those guys are out of a job next year if they don't get this right. It's not calling for anybody's job. It's a fact of the matter. Yeah. They showed their dirty laundry on Hard Knocks. That should have expedited the process. They're at 3 right now. I can't see them not drafting Abdul Carter there and then trying to get back in the first round to get a quarterback, because they need to buy themselves time. But trading out of that spot when you could get a franchise-changing defensive end. And it's not that I think the Bears don't need that. I just don't think I don't think the Giants will do it. I think there was a lot of buzz what came out yesterday from Peter Schrager about the Browns fielding calls or whatever, and same thing with the Giants not being married to staying at 3. I don't buy it. I think if your front office is almost on the way out, you have to be so desperate to block out the noise and go with your gut on the best player that you think you can take when you're one of the first teams in the draft order.
It's
Bears
such a
did this
good point. Yeah.
Bears did this a couple years ago with Justin Fields when they traded up from, what are they, 21 to 11?
Yes.
I think so.
Like, desperate. You're going to see some desperate things that teams do tomorrow because there are a couple of teams that fall into that category of you're on your last leg if you don't get this right.
You're 100% right. It's such a good point I didn't even really consider because the Giants, if you move back, you're kind of like, oh, hey, we have time. We're going to massage this roster. We're going to get better because we're going to. They don't. And if they draft Carter again, they can make the claim at 3. We got the best player in the draft.
But they could also, if they move back to 10, justify taking Shador or taking Dart there, and then getting another good player with the Bears pick at 39.
But there's a lot of ifs and buts with that versus drafting Carter at 3 and knowing
Even when
he's
you
a
have no
difference
quarterback.
maker.
They do have 2 quarterbacks right now.
Well, I mean,
for the now,
right.
but I do think
Wilson
it's like
and what's his name from Florida State. Well,
Jameis Winston, and they got Tommy DeVito. Think about that quarterback meeting room.
But
I love it.
It's like if you have the marquee player, and remember, everybody we've heard, every general manager has talked about, there just aren't that many blue chip prospects in this draft. You can't afford to pass up on taking the 1 or 2 or 3, however many your board has. And then just to justify, oh, well, we can take Shador or Jackson Dart a little bit later on.